My sister's toxic behavior ruined my wedding and my son's birthday. Here's how we are dealing with her forever. Growing up, I always knew my oldest sister Olivia never liked me. She had no issues with our middle sister, Hannah. But for some reason, she hated me from the moment I was born. Olivia was my first bully, tormenting me throughout my school years. When I reached my teenage years, I started discovering my individuality through punk clothing, dark makeup, and heavy metal. She would ridicule me in front of my friends and call me names like Maleficent every day. Olivia would scream in my face, punch me, or try to push me down the stairs by sneaking up behind me. I was terrified to be around her. Our parents saw her mistreating me but chose to stay out of it as much as possible, telling me that sisters sometimes fight and that I should be more patient with Olivia, since she was struggling to adjust to having siblings. When she moved out after getting a job, I finally felt liberated. Hannah was much kinder and always supportive. She taught me how to put on makeup, bought me my first heels, and has continued to have a good relationship with me. Somehow Olivia resented this and told Hannah several times to stay away from me, but Hannah didn't listen. I thought that after Olivia moved out, she and I would have a much better relationship, but I was wrong. She eventually got married to her now husband Jake. In my family, turning 18 is considered a big deal. When my sisters had their 18th birthdays, they threw parties with their friends and families and had a great time. This made me excited for my own 18th birthday, which was approaching. A week before my 18th, my middle sister called to tell me that Olivia was pregnant, but hadn't announced it to everyone yet. I was happy for her, but then felt my stomach drop as I realized she might use my birthday celebration for her announcement. Sure enough, she did. During my birthday party, Olivia showed up wearing a shirt that said "New Mommy" in gold. I was shocked. While I had anticipated the possibility of her revealing the pregnancy on my birthday, I had hoped she would at least wait until I cut the cake. As expected, people started asking her about it, and she loudly announced her pregnancy. Everyone erupted in joy while Olivia soaked in all the attention. I felt so awkward because my birthday celebration had turned into her pregnancy announcement. When I congratulated her, she ignored me and continued talking to our relatives about how thrilled she and her husband were to become parents. I felt like crying because no one seemed to give a damn about celebrating me anymore, so I decided to walk out of my own birthday party. Hannah ran after me, understanding how I felt. Later, my parents questioned why I walked out, and when I told them the reason, they reprimanded me, calling me childish and saying I should be happy for my sister. Since that day, I decided to stop inviting Olivia to my birthday parties. Hannah was also cautious and kept her distance from Olivia to avoid being treated like me. When I was getting married to my then-fiancé George, I didn't want to invite Olivia to my wedding because I was terrified she would do something to steal my spotlight. My parents, however, begged me to include her as a guest because they were worried that other relatives would gossip about us not getting along. For my parents' sake, I agreed and warned them to talk to Olivia to ensure she would be on her best behavior. George and I had saved our hard-earned money over the years to have our dream wedding, just like we always envisioned. The one thing I was most looking forward to was my wedding dress. I've always had issues with my self-esteem, so I wanted to feel like $1,000,000. My dress cost over $900, which may not seem like much, but it was a lot for me, and I had worked hard to budget for it. I adored my dress. It had beading and intricate embroidery all over the bodice and hem, with designs trailing up and down the skirt. It made me feel like a princess, and I was ecstatic about it. I had shown the dress to Hannah, but not even my mom since I wanted to keep my look a surprise. The only problem was that I needed some alterations on my hip as I was a size smaller. Alterations can be expensive, so I asked my aunt, who I knew would be happy to help me. She agreed and asked me to bring the dress to her. I visited my aunt's place with my dress, and she took some of my measurements so she could alter the dress accordingly. She understood how precious the dress was and assured me she would work on it meticulously. We chatted for a while, and I asked her not to share pictures of my dress with anyone. She promised that no one would ever know. My aunt was supposed to call me a week later when the alterations were done. A week passed, and there were no calls from her. I called multiple times, but she didn't answer. I became anxious since she was quite old, so I thought something might have happened to her. As a last resort, Hannah and I drove to my aunt's place to check on her. My aunt opened the door looking quite grim. I asked her why she hadn't been picking up my calls. This is when she told me how she was so sorry for everything and started to cry. Hannah and I stood there unable to comprehend what was happening. My aunt then took me inside her work studio where she had kept my dress. I screamed in horror when I saw my dress was completely ruined. The bodice was torn in half, the beads were scattered everywhere, and the skirt was shredded. I almost collapsed in shock. Hannah asked my aunt what had happened, and if she had done this to my dress. My aunt shook her head and explained that Olivia had visited her a few days ago with her dogs. She had told Olivia that my dress was with her and she was working on it. Apparently, when she went to get Olivia lunch, one of her dogs had accidentally gotten into the room. Olivia had begged my aunt not to tell me it was her fault. Since then, my aunt had been trying her best to fix the dress, but it was nearly impossible. She told me that the estimate to repair the dress would cost even more than the original price, since the material was so high quality. All I could do was break down while Hannah tried to comfort me. My aunt looked heartbroken too, as she kept apologizing repeatedly. I then told her she could have locked the doors, and maybe the dog wouldn't have gotten in. However, my aunt said she had locked the doors, but somehow the dog still managed to get in. Hearing this, my blood ran cold. I realized that maybe Olivia had deliberately let the dogs in to destroy my dress. I was beyond devastated. When I told my parents about the dress, my dad offered to buy me a wedding dress, telling me that since I hadn't taken any money from them for my wedding, I should at least allow him to buy me a new dress. I was heartbroken as I had been so sure that I would be getting married in my dream dress. But unfortunately, I had no other choice left. I informed my parents about my suspicion regarding Olivia, but they immediately tried to defend her and blamed the dog. However, Hannah supported me and told my parents that we needed to talk to Olivia and get to the bottom of this. If Olivia had truly intentionally destroyed my wedding dress, then she would no longer be a part of my celebration. The next day, I asked Olivia to come to our parents' place where Hannah and I were driving as well under the pretense that I wanted to discuss wedding plans with everyone. I knew Olivia wanted to be a bridesmaid, so she excitedly arrived without any suspicions. I told her straight away that I had found out everything from our aunt. I watched the color drain from Olivia's face as she stammered, trying to explain how her dogs are generally very obedient, but had somehow managed to sneak into the room. Hannah questioned her directly if perhaps she was blaming her dog when the truth was that she was jealous of my dress and destroyed it. Olivia immediately began to yell at us, saying why would she ever be jealous of someone like me who had less than her. I then pointed out to her how she had always tried to one-up me throughout our childhood. Hearing this, Olivia scoffed and told me how I was being delusional and that she didn't even like my wedding dress. This is when we caught her in her lie. I asked her how she even disliked my dress when I had never shared pictures of it. My mom agreed and looked at her intently. Olivia began to stammer and say how when her dog destroyed the dress, she then saw it, but something fell off. My dad firmly asked her to stop lying and questioned her if she had been involved in destroying my dress. In the end, after she was cornered, Olivia finally spilled the truth. She tearfully acknowledged her jealousy and insecurities, confessing that she couldn't bear to see me happy on my wedding day. The revelation left my parents stunned, grappling with the realization that their eldest daughter had intentionally sabotaged my happiness. She begrudgingly admitted that she had snuck into my aunt's room to see my dress and had left the door ajar, knowing her dog would do the rest of the work. She had then begged our aunt not to tell me anything, perhaps thinking she could get away with it. Our poor aunt had clearly been manipulated and had been worried about breaking the news to me since she didn't know how I would react. I was so pissed at Olivia that I wanted to choke her right there. Olivia started to cry and said she was sorry for everything. I felt a huge weight on my chest as I could not believe that my sister, who I thought might have changed over the years, was still the same jealous and toxic person. Olivia was banned from my wedding right away, and even though my mom tried to talk to me into forgiving her because she was still family, I had made my mind up. I walked out of the house without looking back. I told George about everything and how Olivia would not be attending our wedding. He fully supported my decision. 2 years later, my husband and I were blessed with our first son, Max. We threw him a grand first birthday party, inviting all our close friends and family. Hannah and her husband, along with their 2 kids, attended, but I made sure Olivia wasn't on the guest list. My parents, however, felt bad for her and told me they wanted her to come to the party, thinking maybe she changed after becoming a mother herself. I reluctantly agreed, provided she stayed away from me and my family during the celebration. The party was going great until it was time to cut the cake. While I was holding Max, Olivia approached me, trying to strike up a conversation. I remained polite but distant. Olivia then began loudly talking about her new business venture and how she had successfully made a 6-figure income in just a few months. She handed out business cards to her relatives and bragged about how she was now living a luxurious life. I was getting annoyed as she was clearly trying to divert attention from Max's birthday. Finally, my dad intervened and told Olivia to stop, reminding her that it was Max's special day. Olivia looked furious but backed off. After the party, I told my parents that Olivia was never welcome at any of our family events again. They protested initially, but after seeing the disruption she caused at Max's birthday, they finally agreed. Hannah also supported me, stating that Olivia's behavior was toxic and damaging to our family dynamics. Since then, Olivia has been estranged from our family. I've cut off all contact with her, and my parents and Hannah have limited their interactions as well. It was a difficult decision, but it was necessary for my mental health and the well-being of my family. Olivia's behavior had always been toxic, and it was clear that she had no intention of changing. I realized that sometimes cutting off toxic relationships, even if they are family, is essential for personal growth and happiness. Now my family and I live peacefully without Olivia's drama, and I can finally focus on the people who truly love and support me.